follow along with me as I wrap this amethyst cluster for a brass collar necklace. I have some 16 gauge brass wire here that I picked up in a local jeweler supply store, Hagstocks. Shout out to Hagstocks. And I have a nice amethyst crystal geode. I don't remember where I picked this up, but it's been sitting in my desk for a while. As you can see, it has some nice crystal points in the front, and it's a nice, relatively decent rock on the back. It's not a perfect triangle, but it's a great shape. And then, as you can see, I have my nice scrap piece of wire that I wanted to recycle. And you can see there's something going on in my belly. So what is that? We'll talk about that soon, maybe. So anyway, I'm going to take the scrap piece of wire. In future, you should cut it down a little bit, but I didn't want to cut it because we're going to be wrapping it. So I wanted to make sure I had as much as possible. I'm going to go around the perimeter of the stone, and I'm going to leave a tail because part of this tail will be used to make the top part of the collar to hold the amethyst to the necklace. I forget what that part is called, but you guys know what I'm talking about. To hold the necklace on, or the piece onto the necklace, so the pendant, so it can stay. Anyway, I'm holding the rock, and it looks like I'm beating it up, but I'm actually being really gentle. And with these types of stones, you want to try to mind where you put your force because you don't want to break too many of the crystals. So right now I'm just using my fingers to get a rough shape, and this is a rough shape of the wire that I'm going to take over to my bench block and hammer out to make it more permanent and sturdy. Right here, what you actually see me doing are some minor adjustments because I know when I hammer out the wire, it's going to expand a little bit. So I'm taking into account where I want the 2 points for the top of the pendant to be, so it'll sit as straight as possible on the collar. So instead of putting the wire right in the middle or bending the wire right in the perfect part or the perfect middle of the triangle, I'm going to do it off to the left and to the right a little bit. So once I hammer the wire down and it expands, it won't expand too much inward, and the wire won't have to crisscross. You'll see what I'm saying a little bit more once we hammer out the wire, but just for now I would say take my word on it, just from a lot of trial and error. So I'm at my teeny bench block with an old ball peen hammer. For this, it didn't really matter that the hammer was new or the bench block. I have rubber for sound reduction, and I also have a sandbag for sound reduction and some additional books for the same thing. So I'm just taking the pre-formed shape that we made, and I'm going to go around it one time with the ball peen hammer. And then I'm going to go around it once more with the hammer again, just to be sure that I have a relative amount of sturdiness. And as you can see, now you see why I wanted to put it off to the left and to the right a little bit, because now as it expanded, it came into a nice perfect center. So now we have our wire nice and hammered so it's sturdy, and it'll be able to hold our amethyst in place as we wrap. We have our, where you see our centerpiece will go. We have our 2 tails, our short one and our very long one, which we'll be using to wrap. So as you can see now, it has a little bit of space because it's expanded, and so I'll have a nice amount of wire to wrap around. So now for me, it's all about trying to show you guys how to begin wrapping the top of the pendant and record at the same time. So I took a pair of pliers, I forget what these are called, but I'll put it in the description box below. And using the smallest of the 2, I'm going to hold it with the smallest piece in the back and bend the wires around the pliers. So now I have both pieces bent. You see the long piece that's in the way, the tail, and the shorter piece. We're going to go ahead and move on to cutting this shorter piece off and beginning to wrap the tail around. Before I go ahead and cut the tail a little bit, what you see me doing here now are some final adjustments to the piece to be sure that all the wires is in the place that I like it. Once I feel pretty confident about that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my humongous bolt cutters A tip would be to cut further in with the wire for future reference, but for the sake of the video, that's where I cut. Once I have that cut with my bolt cutters, I'm going to then move in with a metal file that I have specifically for wire and give these edges a nice little file down for now, and then I'll do it again later. But this is for now, just so I don't cut myself or scratch myself while working on the piece. So now you see it's a nice file edge, and then we're going to move on to adjusting and wrapping the stone as you see me doing here. What you see going on here is me realizing that the tail wire I have as of now is going the wrong way. So what I'm doing is straightening out the wire using some flat nose pliers. Doesn't matter, I would say the bigger the better. So I can then wrap the long tail wire around the correct way. And the correct way for me, there's no right or wrong way, but for me, I like to go around having the tail start winding on itself, just because it makes, in my opinion, a more smoother wrap and an easier wrap to get started. So as you see here, I'm wrapping the tail starting on its actual side as opposed to going around the opposite side. Now that I have my first wrap done, and you see I'm liking the placement of the amethyst in regards to the wrap, now it's just a matter of continuing to wrap it around while holding the geode in place without damaging any of the crystals, and finding the best spots, for me to wrap the wire. So this point is really all about trial and error and personal preference at this point. You can choose to wrap your wire tightly together, giving it a more caged feel, or you can wrap it a little looser depending on how thick the gauge of your wire is, giving it more of a freestyle, bohem, just like come in, sister, mother nature type wrap. Again, it's totally up to you. I tend to go more in the middle so you can still see the stone, excuse me you guys, I'm sick today, while still being able to offer some security and support for the stone, because I work with children, and so I need to be able to bounce, I need to be able to move and have the stone stay in place. So all you see me doing here now is just the various adjustments and wrapping of the stone. While I'm wrapping the stone, I wanted to take a minute to point out that it looks like I'm being very aggressive with the stone, meaning that I'm pushing and pulling all over the stone and all of its pretty little crystals, but in fact I'm not. What I'm actually doing is holding the wire from the furthest edge of the area where I'm wrapping and then pushing just the wire only, so I'm not touching the amethyst, so I'm not losing too many crystals. I think I only had about 3 pieces fall off. So for what you're doing now, it's just a matter of figuring out the best, most sturdiest spot to hold your geode and to hold your wire so you can wrap the additional pieces around. So honestly, it's really all about trial and error and about learning how to hold it with more practice, the more pieces that you wrap. What I want to say is just try to hold it as gently as possible. And so what I have now with this tail, I like to take my tail ends and wrap them around and create more of a artistic effect with a swirl loop at the edge, which I'm then going to go ahead and file, as you see I'm about to do now. So once I cut the edge to where I feel it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing, I'm going to go ahead and assess the piece one last time. And you can either file it the way that I'm doing here with a metal file, or you can bust out your Dremel like you see me doing here. Put on a rubber edge, unless anyone else has any better suggestions. I've tried using sanding edges and they don't do the same work I feel like a rubber edge does. And then just go ahead around the end and give it a nice file down. And this also makes it nice and not just filed but smooth. There's no rough edges. It's really buttery to the touch once I use the rubber. So if anyone has any other ideas on how I can do this, please let me know. But for now, this rubber seems to work really well for most of my metals. I haven't tested it on 14K gold yet, but for brass, copper, silver, it works pretty well. So there you have it. Both edges are filed, and then what I'm going to do now for the pendant piece is just push that one last little piece in with some flat nose pliers on both sides, just readjusting one last time. I'm going to push this back piece in as well, like I stated before, so it can stay closed and stay on your leather, your metal necklace, whatever kind of necklace you want to make with a pendant such as this. With pendants these sizes, I tend to make metal collars or chokers just so I can have something sturdy to hold it. And there you have it. Here's my finished pendant. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Here's what it looks like on a brass collar I already have hammered. So you can see how lovely it sits and the metal matches. And it just looks like a piece of artwork. So thanks for checking out my video. And here we go. Here is our handmade amethyst and brass pendant and choker necklace set. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys enjoy how wonderful this looks in color. Be sure to check out my other videos, like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching and have a wonderful day.